Oh, not much.
Yeah.
It's it's my kid's nap time.
We have to be quiet.
No, no, he's in the other room.
Yeah,
Should,
okay.
yeah.
He's not right behind you. Good.
No.
Um, cool. Well, thanks for doing this. You and I go back a really long time. A
We do.
really, yeah, 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 so Dallas, Tony and Guy, and then and then you ended up in New York. So I really kind of wanted to just kind of hear your origin story because I'm a big fan of your work. Like everything you've come to do and be, it's just really awesome to see. Um, and knowing baby Clara versus Clara now is pretty cool too.
That's so nice. I mean, I'm so honored that you asked me to do this. I mean, yeah, it's very nice.
Of course.
I was also like, what do I even have interesting to say about hair?
I mean, like I don't know if hair is always the conversation, you know. I think it's more just about your thought process, you know. Like we're all working with that textile, you know, and
Yeah.
it's where I've never been necessarily interested in talking about techniques or something like that, but more so like just who you are and why you do the things that you do, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So like, yeah, give me your story. Like where did you grow up and how did you get into this world?
Yeah, so I grew up in Arkansas in Fayetteville, college town. And then I kind of always wanted to do hair. It always kind of made sense to me in my brain when I was young. Like I think even color just made sense to me. So and my mom was really encouraging because my mom loved her hairdresser. And my mom's hairdresser growing up also went to Tony and Guy. And so my mom was like, this is where you're gonna go. Um,
Did you know
yeah,
her? I mean, did you end up knowing her like when you went to Tony and Guy?
she lived in the town. She like went to Tony and Guy and then moved back. So she
Got it.
was like
Okay.
my mom's hairdresser at that moment.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, so I guess I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds great, but I guess I don't know. It took me a minute to figure out things after high school. I feel like I went to a small high school that didn't like they didn't like nurture really anything other than like agriculture. So I worked in a salon for a little bit, and actually, like two of the girls that worked there also went to Tony and Guy, and yeah, I like got an idea of everything, which I feel like was really helpful when I went to hair school because I already kind of had an idea of like I knew color, like formula, like I already knew like
Mhm.
how color worked and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so then I went to Tony and Guy, which is where I met you. I think I met you when I was actually in hair school.
Yeah, for sure you did.
I
It's so
remember you would
wild.
like come in and all the girls would be like, "Oh, Clint."
Yeah, I don't remember that part.
Of course you don't.
No, I don't remember. Good old
um,
days.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that was a really great education. I still, talk to Sam, who was like very inspiring to me, Sam Finley.
Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess, I worked in a salon for a little bit after that. I worked for Tony and Guy for a little bit, and then it just wasn't right for me.
Where were
I don't
you? What location?
know, North Park.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just wasn't right for me. I think I was just really young and like I just wasn't ready for like a full-time job like that, you know?
Mm, okay.
And they were like, okay, so now you're gonna do like learn how to teach and like do education. And I was like 20, maybe I just turned 20, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. So then basically I moved to New York when I was like 21, with no
Man, I didn't
plan.
realize you went that fast. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like left Tony and Guy and like worked at a random salon for like 6 months and worked at like Cosmic Cafe,
Hmm.
which I loved.
Yeah, it's gone now, I think. I think they closed it.
Yeah.
It's so
I've seen that. Yeah, it is
sad.
sad. Met what's his name? Kumar, who used to own it.
Right.
in all the Wes Anderson movies. Anyways,
Yes, totally, totally. Yeah, I remember that. I had forgotten about that because there was another owner who was like very shady, I had heard.
crazy. Yeah, yeah. He had like a
Yeah,
lot of, I mean, before Me Too, but like he was like, yeah, a
yeah.
Me Too person. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I ended up in New York, and I feel like I just like kind of floated around my first couple years here.
So did you go to New York like did you just want to move or did you go with intentions?
Well, I mean, I think I always, I think I always wanted to, and I think a lot of hairdressers, like I wanted to work on set, right?
Mhm.
But like you don't know how to get into it. You don't, and also I think at some point I think you realize it's a lot harder than you think. And like working in a salon is really nice and you make consistent
Mhm.
money. And I think a lot of people that maybe have interest in it realize, and maybe it's the same for me, like looking at someone like Guido's career, or like say, someone where Pat McGrath, where their career is their life and they don't have anything other than that. And like my life isn't that way, but you realize how much work you put into it that people don't see, and how much time and like assisting and like making no money. um so I think, I didn't know all that, but I think, I did want to work on set. And then yeah, I guess that was something I wanted to do, but I mean, I actually kind of moved for a boy.
Okay. I mean, you're now husband, obviously.
Hmm.
Yeah, just kidding.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, that was 14 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I worked in a few salons,
Mhm.
kind of floated around, did that, like was just like trying to like pay my rent. I mean, I came to New York with like $1,200, which is
Mhm.
crazy to me now,
Yeah.
like I basically had just enough to like pay my month's rent, and I was like, I hope I make money this month.
Mhm. Yep. Similar
And
thing with me for
to
sure.
LA,
Yeah. Yeah, it
really.
was so bad. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll get into it later, but yeah, I did not have any idea what like making real money was. Like, I was busy at the salon, there was cash flow, but there was no savings. So once I jumped, like I ran through my meager savings real quick. And the salon that I was supposed to work at didn't open for like another almost a year, I think. And so it was a terrible situation. Hence
Crazy.
why I still have a clientele in Dallas because I would just go back, and work and do their hair to make some income.
I mean, that's kind of, I think that's like a great way to do nowadays. Like, that's an option. In Dallas, I was kind of like, I think I just partied too much. And it was like, I wasn't gonna like, I don't know, that was just my lifestyle and there. And I don't think I knew anything different. So
Right.
I think when I moved to New York, I just like surprisingly chilled out a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have to. Um, or you don't have to, for sure. Sometimes
Yeah.
money forces you to. Uh,
Yeah.
s-
Yeah.
so did you know anyone who was doing session work at all?
No,
So
no.
how did that like unfold?
I mean, I worked in salons. In the last salon that I worked at, I worked so much. I mean, like we were open until 10 p.m. Like people would come, like so much. And I feel like I finally was at a place where I think I had a little bit more of a balance of, well, I worked a lot, but like I think I wasn't like struggling money wise so much.
Right.
But my boss, I think I had randomly had Saturdays off, and my boss at the time was at Brian Bantry for a bit,
Okay.
the agency.
Uh-huh.
Um, and Ward, if you know who Ward is,
Hmm.
Ward
Hmm.
Air, he was also there. She assisted him, and she was like, "Hey, he needs an assistant tomorrow. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay," like having no idea what I was going into.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a lot. I remember it was like a kind of a crazy shoot, and like it was with this actress, this Swedish actress that was in, oh, what's that? I forget what the movie, like some big movie, I forgot now. But
Okay.
she had like so many extensions in, and she was in this like thing of water, right? And the hair was so heavy that like she was like the photo was like her in the water with the hair around her, and like I had to like hold this like heavy wet hair up as she like dropped down. Like I
Were you
don't know.
in water too? No.
I was like above the tank. So
Got it.
she was like in the tank and she would come up, but like have to grab the hair and like drop it. And like now I don't know if I would let a brand new assistant just like do that. But I like figured it out. But it was like
Yeah.
I remember it being pretty intense.
Yeah.
But I guess it went good enough where I mean I like worked with Ward for a while, you know, 10
Mhm.
years ago.
Yeah. What was working for him like?
I mean, Ward is an amazing hairdresser. He's
Mhm.
such a great, I learned a lot from him. And there's certain things that I learned from him that I think, especially early on in your career, some of those, there's some things that you pick up that just stick with you forever, you know, that you'll like never forget. But yeah, I learned a lot from him that, you know, I took throughout my career. He probably doesn't even realize what he taught me. And I feel like
Right.
sometimes assist same with assistants that I have. Sometimes I'll say something ridiculous and that's what they remember. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from him. I'm grateful. Like, you know, he asked me back and connected me with this agency. And I mean, I think Brian Bantry's a wonderful agency. You know, they're wonderful women that work there.
Are you currently with them?
No, no,
Oh, okay. Okay.
not. I never signed with them. I think by the time that I was ready to have an agent, I wanted something different
Got
from
it.
them. Yeah, but
Okay.
they've always been so supportive of me and just like, you know, like I mean, they like watched me grow up in my career and I think they're so supportive even if people aren't signed with them.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I mean, I assisted a million other people as well, but that was like my beginning.
Yeah, that's great. How was Ward to work with maybe versus other people? And like I definitely understand everybody has their style, right? And it can be rough. So what I don't know, what was your takeaway? I mean, obviously you love Ward and he did great for you, but was
Um,
it?
I mean, I was really young still. I think
Mhm.
I was like 23 or 24 when I assisted him. And the industry was a lot different then. Um, and even as I assisted other men, I did remember thinking how funny it was that I was like a 23-year-old girl. And a lot of times the models would be close to my age, and everybody else on set would be like older men,
Mm.
you
Hmm.
know, and usually
Yeah.
like I would be the one person that, you know, like a model would look at me and be like, oh, okay, you know, there's like a female here or like a young female. You know
Got
what I
it.
mean?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there were other women on set, but there wasn't many women on set back then, especially
Hmm.
young women.
Right.
But I mean, I mean, I don't know. You didn't, you didn't talk when you were an assistant, you know, you didn't,
Hmm.
like you were always meant to be seen, but you weren't meant to say your opinion. You were just
Sure.
meant to do like know what the person needed before they needed it. I mean, this is just in general, but yeah, I mean, I think the industry was so different back then. It's like hard to compare how I treat my assistants now. You know
Yeah.
what I
Sure.
mean?
Yep. Okay. So after Ward, afterward, um, did you go? Sorry. Did you go did you assist a lot more, or because you assisted him for how long? You said quite a while, right?
Um, yeah, I like assisted him, but then I started assisting other people too. So I
Okay.
probably assisted him for like a couple years. Like, you know, I would assist him a lot and then I wouldn't see him for like a month or two.
Hmm.
Yeah, I assisted as much as I possibly could. And then I also started doing my own jobs that I probably was not prepared for.
Right. Right. So um pretty immediately. Well, how about this? Like, how did you start to siphon. Actually, before we get there, post Ward, was there any like standout people that you assisted that made an impression on you? Obviously, he did. Was because you have that first person you assist, and it can be intense, and you just learn all kinds of things, whether good or bad. And then you can move on and you start to get a lay of the land. So, how did things change after him?
I mean, this was over years. Like I moved out of New York for probably like 6 months,
Mm,
like got a break. I think assisting on shoots was kind of not that it was a hobby, but like I worked in the salon like 3 days and then I assisted on the side when I could. But it wasn't like my necessarily like career yet. Like I think I
right.
just did it and then I didn't know it could lead to something. And then I moved, I like got rid of my apartment and lived on a bus in Austin for like 6 months,
I
but
remember
like
that.
traveled around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like more just like traveled around. And
Mhm.
I think when I came back, I remember like I was getting a lot of assisting jobs. And like I was like, why am I turning down amazing things um to not really do anything? So then I was like, I should just go back. Like I'm not really done with New York. And then when I moved back, I was like more serious about assisting and shoots and stuff like that. And I think
Mhm.
at that point things fell into place. Like I started doing shows and I started, I got some of my first real clients. Like I started doing e-com for like Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie and like those brands,
Mhm.
which at that time, e-commerce started kind of taking over like magazine or what do they call them? Like they started taking over a lot of commercial jobs, like what do they call them? Not magazines, but oh my god, this is
L-
how long they've been gone. Catalogs.
Like
Like
catalog
catalogs
stuff. Okay.
started
Yeah.
going away and it started becoming e-com and like
Mhm.
Urban and Anthro were like they shot every day and they were in Philly and I went all the time. There was a phase where I went every week for like almost a year to Philly. It was a lot, but I feel like that was a really great experience because everyone was my age. I was like probably
Mhm.
26, 25, 26, 27, and everyone was like close to my age and kind of had their place on set. So I feel like I kind of learned how to be on set and like do wind and just like little things like, just be really connected to the girl, like tucking their hair correctly or like just like there's little things that you know you don't think about. Like you think about hair as just you do hair and you style hair and then it is what it is, right? But like doing ecom that much, you learn like little things about the curl on the back of the neck that comes out or like how someone's cheek looks with hair, and there's little things that you learn and like when you're shooting someone in e-commerce, like every angle, like
Mhm.
what you learn and like um that to say I don't do e-com that much anymore because it's very soul sucking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, did you feel, well, first, before I ask that, how did that job come about?
I assisted this guy and he did a lot of anthropology's catalogs. And when they started doing e-commerce more, it was kind of like, and a lot of people that are my peers or around the same time probably came up doing these jobs where a lot of the people above us weren't going to do e-commerce, right? Because it was kind of like, I mean, now it's like
Right.
what everyone does, but like things started moving towards being e-commerce and so it was like kind of below him to do it. Like the rate wasn't good enough, but like to me it was like an amazing rate, and so he was just like, oh, I'm not available for that, but I can recommend my assistant, which is so nice because people don't really do that
Right.
often.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So then
Amazing.
I was working with them all the time.
So do you feel like that Urban Outfitters job, because I will say, watching your career from afar, like it seemed like that job was when you kind of like maybe developed your style a little bit, like obviously
Yeah.
shooting that much is going to give you a lot of experience. But do you feel like that job was pretty pivotal for you?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. In other ways, I think, you know, it I learned how to work on set and with
Mhm.
people and that kind of thing. But I think also, you learn how to do that hair, and sometimes
Right.
it takes a bit to get out of that hair. I mean, that hair was very much my style and always has been. Like, I still love that kind of hair. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of girls and women like that cool, effortless, undone, like,
Totally.
just the right amount. And it's very hard to do sometimes.
Hmm.
But I think also, I've had to grow away from that kind of hair as well. And sometimes it's hard to get your brain out of that hair, you know,
That's
where it
cool.
always has to make sense.
So if you're on set, doing this effortless, cool hair, and you did it very well. What are you dreaming about doing as that's happening? Like when you want to make your escape, what kind of hair did you want to do?
Um, I don't know if I knew. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. I don't think I really knew, but I did want to do shows. I think at that point I was like, the only way to grow for me is to go and do like all the shows. So I kind of that same time, because I made enough money, I was able to go to Europe and do all the shows. And like, sometimes you go and you basically book your flight in like it's the cheapest place you can find, and then you just like cross your fingers you get confirmed for shows.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Or else
Yeah,
you just get a vacation. You get like
an unwanted
uh,
vacation.
yeah, totally.
An expensive unwanted vacation.
Yep. Yep. You
Yeah,
figure out how to enjoy it. Okay,
yeah,
cool. So is that what you did? You
yeah,
ended up,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Did
I
you
really
have to quit Urban Outfitters?
I still did it, but I think eventually, like, when you're not available, people just move on, you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and they used a lot of other people as well, so I think, you know that thing ran its course.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was like a contract thing or if it was like a
I
job
did
by
have a
job.
contract with them for a
Mhm.
bit. Yeah, and I guess, yeah, I think around the time when you are gone for like a month, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. The industry moves on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
exactly. Yeah.
So did you have your eye on someone's team to be on, like for shows?
Yeah, I wanted to work with Sam
Mhm.
McKnight, who I
Mhm.
who I did work with. Yeah, that was I think he had a really that was like the aesthetic that I liked, just like cool, undone, Kate Moss type of hair.
Yeah.
And he always did Chanel, and I always thought the Chanel show just seemed so cool. And they used to do so many wigs and just like looks, and it looked so fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Sam is like one of the most amazing humans.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I've interacted with him a bit, and he's always like very lovely and gracious, and I really like him. I think he'd be
Yeah.
great to assist. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I understand. Like, you just, there's something you just like girls, like models and celebrities. It's just like there's something you just trust about what he says and what he thinks and how he looks at a girl, and little details that you don't think people don't always think about, but
Mhm.
like it makes something have that like moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. What do
But
you
I mean,
think? Go ahead.
I assisted everybody on the shows though.
Mhm.
I assisted Sam, but I worked with literally everybody, probably did every single show
Yeah.
over my time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was definitely, out there just kind of trying to get on every job I could for a while. And I think those days are have run their course for me, honestly. But
There.
but man, my experiences, for I never did Paris, but to do New York Fashion Week, I got to assist just really amazing people. Like I got to assist James and Laurent and who else was on there? I don't know, my brain's old now, but yeah, it was great. I don't, fortunately did not get on any shows with anybody who I disliked. It was always just such a good experience, you know. And even
Yeah.
when I was outgunned, you know, I was still invited back, and it was awesome. So
I think that's just part of it though. I think,
yeah.
you're not going to be the king or queen of every hairstyle. And I was thinking about this recently because now I do more celebrity, and like for the most part it's just me.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll have
Hmm.
an assistant, like if I'm on a shoot or something, but like when you're getting someone ready. And I was just thinking about how you're almost fearless on shows when you're on a team, because like you just go for it, and you know
Yeah,
that if you don't succeed, somebody's going to help you, and vice
totally.
versa. Like if
Right.
you're killing the hair, the whatever it is, and you can do
Mhm.
10 models in that time, you're going to go help somebody else. And that's just always the way it is. And it was like so fun. And you have to put your pride away that you're not always going to be like the one that succeeds at whatever it is, or you're not going to be
Mhm.
the quickest one. I mean, there are people
Right.
that's their career. They're like show career people, and like,
Totally.
there's like these girls that every season they were so good, but they've been doing it, working backstage for like 15 years or something, and they just
Yeah.
like do everything in 5 minutes perfectly, but like
Yep.
in general, you're gonna try. I mean, you have to try everything, and like there's always gonna be someone that's gonna help you do it well or fix it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's gonna get done. It's going out
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Uh,
sometimes you're the fixer, and sometimes someone fixes your stuff.
yeah, yeah. You'll walk
I
away for
mean, hair
five
is
minutes and
different.
somebody is on your
Yeah,
model.
someone's changed. Whether it's right or wrong, someone
Yeah,
might change it. Yeah.
totally, totally. Take your
Yeah.
credit.
Yeah.
So was it? So you had Urban Outfitters. You decided you wanted to start branching out. Were you also assisting a lot on shoots at that point, or were okay? Did you have
Hmm.
an agency at that point?
No, no. Mm-mm.
Okay.
I did this thing for a long time, and I wrote it out, and I really enjoyed it, where I was like on every agency's like assistant list. And then they would pass me like little jobs, or like stuff that their artists wouldn't do or no one was available. And I kind of rode that for a long time.
Sure. Yeah, you can. I mean, when you get on like the right list, you can just keep working.
Yeah.
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 So were you test shooting
Yeah.
much?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
did test shoots. Yeah. I feel like I don't know when test shoots started getting like I mean at some point they just get better, and then they look like real stuff, like you do
Yeah,
tests and it's like everyone's just shooting in the dark, and then at some point you start being like, yeah, we need a real stylist, or we need this, or there's a lot of things. But
sure.
I think I was testing, but I also would do a lot of editorials. And I don't know what year it was, but it was definitely in my prime of show time. I started working with, or it was like towards the end of when I did shows. He's actually a good friend of mine now, but his name's Tom Newton, and he's a photographer. And
Mhm.
he used to shoot everything for Into the Gloss and a lot of stuff for Glossier. Um, so I assisted James as well a lot, like on shoots and stuff in New York and on shows. And James is like, the assistant at the agency was like, "Can you do this Into the Gloss shoot?" And they just needed a hair person because it was like it's all about makeup, right?
Mhm.
And so I did it, and then Tom and I just clicked, and he would just put me up for all of their Into the Gloss stuff and like some
That's
Glossier stuff.
awesome.
So nice. I mean, it's so nice because Tom was like also my age or around my age, and like I think he worked with big makeup artists, and he was just like, oh, like he's just so sweet, and we're good
Mhm.
now. We're
Mhm.
really good friends. Like I just saw him in Paris last week, Um, but yeah, it was really nice. And when he started doing other things outside of End of the Gloss, he would always put me up for them, which is so nice. I think just having a peer that believes in you is, I think that's one of the biggest things.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, how do you think your your work has evolved?
I don't know.
I mean, like we were saying earlier, you always have kind of these hair goals or like stuff that you're seeing out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, oh man, like I wish I could be doing that, um, oftentimes not realizing how good you are at what you already do or what they're doing, but do you feel like you've had places you wanted your skill set to go and been able to get there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think sometimes you have your style or what you like or what you're good at, and then you try to do other things, right? Like you're like, oh, I want to push things, and then you try other things, and you like them, but then you do something and you make it you again, and you're like, oh, I
Mhm.
love that. You're
Right.
like, oh, that feels right. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's these phases in our careers where I'll go through phases of doing like more editorial hair and like being like wanting my work to be very cool, just
Mhm. Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
And then, and then sometimes you're like, I just want to do really good hair. Like I just want to do the best. I just want to make the hair look as best as it possibly can. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think now I do a lot more celebrities. So I think it's a different ball game where you're creating a character for somebody, if that makes sense.
Totally. So that being said, like, how did you start to get into the celebrity scene? Was it intentional or did you kind of fall into it?
Um, I think I kind of always was like interested. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that I started in fashion. Like I live in New York, so the people I assisted were on shoots, and that was
Mhm.
like my training. Like I know how to be on set. Like I know how to shoot. Like I know how things are going to look on set. I know where like I mean, every set you're on is different, so you're like always kind of learning and figuring out. But like there's certain things that you're just like, yeah, this I can do this in my sleep. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
And with celebrity, it's not that it's harder. I think people think it's easier, but you're really doing hair, and it's not like you send them to set or you hold back. You send them to set, you see how it looks, and you can always add a
Right.
little more. Right?
Right.
It's like you send them, and they're going in front of crazy flashes with a weird background in wind in a car, maybe there's rain, and you're just
Mhm.
like send them out with a prayer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like maybe good photos will come back from the red carpet. Maybe not. Maybe their hair is tucked in their shirt. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you never know.
How often is it where, obviously the eye that we have for our own work is going to be much different than what anybody else sees. But
Yeah.
how often do you think are you looking at the hair that you did in a photograph and you're like, I should have done A, B, or C, or man, I can't believe that's out. Is it pretty consistent?
All the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time. I
Yeah.
think I think, I mean, and I think maybe there's a lot of hair people that feel this way. Like I spent a lot of time assisting. Like I spent 7 years assisting.
Hmm.
Um, 6 years assisting, like a lot. And so any hairstyle, I know how to do it 10 different ways, right? It's just choosing which one makes the most sense at that moment and for that
Hmm.
person's hair type, right? And sometimes I'll do it and I'll be like, couldn't have done it better. Like
Hmm.
that is I chose the exact way. And then other times you're like, I didn't need to blow it out. I could have used their natural
Right.
texture. It
Right.
would have been a little bit cooler, but like you can't always read people's minds or like, I mean, you can't always make the right decision.
Sure.
Like you could do your best, but I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, like the other day I was on like a video shoot and it's a client, a brand I work with all the time. And this girl had like really pretty, like natural, like waves, and like these cute bangs, right? And like it was kind of wet. And I was like, well, normally I would leave it wet, but I've been on these jobs a million times. Like I'm going to blow it out and I'm going to recurl her curls. and have them like kind of brushed out. Like that's what the client wants. It's video. Like
Right.
video just has to be like more perfect. It can't be as cool. You see everything. There's always a video person that like zooms in and they're like, well, there's just one where, you know. So it just has to be as perfect as you can get it, right?
Right.
And I did it like, you know, like blew it out really nice, curled it twice. Sometimes you have to curl it twice, brushed it, used a ton of hairspray. It looked really good, I think. And then, you know, she's like, oh yeah, people usually just like work with my natural curls. And I was like, cool. And then she goes on set and she's like jumping in a ball pit and her hair looks fabulous.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she was just like, oh, actually, it makes sense why you did it the way you did it. It still looks really good. And I was like, hmm. You know, but
That's
then
great.
sometimes that doesn't happen, you know. Sometimes
Yeah.
so I was like saying to my assistant, sometimes you do things and you make a choice and you're like, oh, I should have done it this way. And then
Yeah.
other times you're like, I made the right choice.
Amazing. That's great. So what can you divulge what that video was or who the artist was?
Oh, I mean, it wasn't exciting. It's for Bloomingdale's, which is cute. I mean, it's a cute
Yeah,
holiday video, you know, but like holiday hair, you know, it's like a
sure.
holiday video. Like it wasn't that exciting. I mean, it wasn't that exciting, but like, you know, in those little, it's like the small wins when you think you're like, oh, I did make the right decision, you
Yeah,
know?
totally. That's great.
Yeah.
So would you let's see. Um is celebrity hair, is that the direction you want to continue in? Is that your thing, or do you want to still do everything, or are you digging this?
I I still want to do everything.
Cool.
I love I love doing I actually like working with celebrities, especially, you know, because sometimes you can be just as creative as you can on an editorial. Like if you find the right people that you work with that trust you and like you, and you know, you can build a look for them and do cool stuff. I mean, granted, like doing things on a celebrity that has maybe a normal face versus like a model that can usually pull off
Right.
everything is a lot different. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I started doing more celebrity after I had a baby. I mean, I did it before, but then I feel
Mhm.
like I leaned into it a bit more just because um, being on set 12 hours is a lot harder than just like getting someone ready for an event, if that
Totally.
makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, keeping your hands in everything is going to keep your edge sharp, right? So you have a lot more to bring to the table when you do celebrities, because you're working in editorial and all these other aspects. So that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the industry's changed a lot where, you know, there was like people that just did celebrities and then you would do like press stuff with them, right? But then for an editorial, the magazine or the photographer, whoever would choose the hair and makeup people, right? But
Hmm.
now, you know, celebrities just have so much more pull and say where I remember, you know, I'd work with photographers or what or a magazine and you know, you would work with a certain level of talent. Um, but then, you know, there's such a juggle of who gets the job, you know, because the magazine wants somebody and you know, the celebrity or publicist or whoever wants their person, you know, and maybe the photographer wants their person. So there's three people fighting for to get their people in, right? So
Right.
I think you can't, I don't think you can just do one anymore. I don't think you can just do fashion because, you know, celebrities or influencers are being shot more for editorials now.
Right.
You know,
Totally.
it's not just like the typical model. So I think you have to do both a bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have a like a regular assistant, or do you have like a revolving cast?
I like have had regular assistants. There's like, you know, they'll be with you for a few years and then they'll move on to bigger people or like
Right.
their own jobs or whatever. So there's people that I've worked with for a really long time that will always come in and help me when they can. And then,
Yeah.
there's some that have been with me a few years. I have an assistant now that I work with a lot who's actually from Texas, went to
Hmm.
Tony and Guy.
Nice.
Yeah, and I mean he's with me a lot, but I think I think, it's nice to have somebody that wants to stay with you and learn from you and work with you, because I think training somebody how you like hair done and then being able to do it similar to what you like is like, it's so important, you know.
Right. For sure. Um, what do you look for in assistants? Do you think? What are some important things?
Um, I guess, I mean, like, if someone wants to learn, like, that's, I think, one of the biggest things. If someone wants
Mm,
to like learn and grow, also someone that wants to be like patient and take the time to learn, because it's like, I think assistants now are like, just everything happens so much quicker, with Instagram. You can just do some test shoots and put your work out there and start getting jobs. It's just different from when I came up, or like originally came up. And so I think, yeah, I think just like taking time and learning all the things, because I don't think you assist someone 3 times and know how to do everything. I think there's so many different situations that you end up in, that
mhm.
there's a lot of situations that I end up in that I feel like I know how to handle and I don't feel scared. And I think that's, to me, is great. Like, some people are down to just like learn on the job, but I think there's a lot of situations that I end up in that I'm like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, I've like been here before, like it's not a big deal, or like no problem, and I think just that stress of like being on set and someone throwing something at you like a curveball and you don't know how to handle it is like, I don't know, and people can feel stress. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, I think taking time to learn is really important, and like just paying attention and just being like helpful just to me. I mean, honestly, like, there's things that I see in assistants, like if my assistant immediately like somehow knows how to pack my bag, like my bag is very specific, and I think I really like the way it's packed. And I think it's pretty easy to figure it out. There's things
Right.
that you're like, yeah, whatever. But like in general, the gist of it. And I think seeing how someone packs your bag is a huge, you can tell a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But, so do you think there's like a base level, like who an assistant needs to be if they can even like end up being a good assistant, right? Like I always felt like let's say like a receptionist at a salon, you can you can teach somebody like bullet points of customer service, but unless they're naturally a helpful person, naturally considerate, it's really hard to like inculcate that in someone. So do you think someone has to be of a certain disposition to even start?
I mean, I think this industry is so big and there's a lot more jobs than there used to be. And there's space for everybody and every
Yeah,
weird personality type.
sure.
You know, there is a place for everybody, I think. So I think assisting isn't for everybody, but you can find the right person to assist. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I don't think there's necessarily like a certain character trait that you have to be an assistant. I think it's just like not be lazy.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's just like this industry, it's a lot harder and there's a lot more work that goes into it, than people realize. So I think it's it's a lot harder in some ways than working in a salon. Like, you don't know your hours. Sometimes you're there at 7, sometimes you're there at 5. Like, my call time's 5:30 tomorrow AM.
Right. Yep.
So it's just like, I think it's just being on your toes and ready and like okay with whatever. I think if you have really high expectations for a shoot, like you expect food. Just kidding. No, but I think like having like realistic expectations for what you're going into, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
I mean,
then
food would be nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Food's great. I'm just kidding. Like
Yeah,
when I worked in fashion, sometimes you didn't eat.
totally.
Actually, still.
Yeah.
But I think not having like crazy expectations for what you're going into, especially when you're new, just being able to
Hmm.
accept whatever the situation is. Sometimes it's hot. Sometimes you're so hot and you're shooting on a beach and like, you're just sweaty and you're trying to make this person look effortless, like they're not
Right.
sweating at all. The temperature is
Hmm.
perfect.
Hmm.
So it's like sometimes or sometimes it's freezing. Like sometimes we're shooting girls in summer clothes in the middle of winter.
Right.
So I think just you have to be on your toes and ready for anything and prepared. It almost is like you're preparing for like the craziest hiking camping trip you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
your bag can't break
Right.
ever. Your tools have to be like not broken, efficient, be able to move, fly, be in the back of like a mobile home, like whatever. You have to be like ready for any situation.
Sure. That's great.
Yeah.
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 Um, has becoming a mother affected your work at all?
Worse. Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how? I'm curious because I'll never experience this.
I know. I say to some of my friends sometimes, like our male peers that don't have a kid, like,
Mhm.
they could go back to work and like, I mean, I took time off, but not that much time. But I think the first year was especially hard because you're like, there's always a struggle of like, I want to be with my kid, but I also, and you're like, I don't want to be with my kid too much,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
they need their thing, and
Mhm.
you you still want your career, you still want your career, but like, I mean, even just traveling is really hard. I was just gone for like a week in Paris and like, I mean, that was so hard. Like, I also just missed him.
Yeah, I was
Um,
curious if the whole family went or if you just did it the
um,
solo thing.
I wish that my husband had a more flexible job that they could just come with me. I did a job in Miami and came we stayed a few more days and I just
Mhm.
added a few more days on and they came and that was really fun. And like I've done like some jobs in the Hamptons and they've come, or like jobs in upstate and they've come. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's the hard thing is like, yeah, having a family and like some things it's like, especially with celebrities, sometimes you have to be gone for a while. And I mean, I say no to some travel things just because it's like
Mhm.
too hard, or even like, he goes to bed at 7:30, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, we wrapped. Maybe I can catch him before he goes to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's tough. Sometimes
Mhm.
I say no to things that I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot less editorials since I had a baby,
Mhm.
you know.
How old
I
is
mean,
he
working
now?
for sorry. He's over a year and a half. He's 20 months.
Yeah.
Actually, 6 months. I didn't say, I would just say a year and a half for a while. And someone was like, oh yeah, my kid's almost 2. And then our babies were like the same age. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So yeah.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
I feel like moms make that conversion into like saying the months rather than the years. And I have to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
calculate.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like over a year. He's like between a year and a half and 2.
Cool. Perfect. I get it now. I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we'll be at the playground. I'll be like, he's a year and a half. And this other kid is like, they're like, so is he? He's really big. And I'm like, oh, actually, he's almost 2.
Well, I guess
And
it
they're like,
matters like so much more at that age. Like they do change, they
yeah.
grow fast. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to ask this, and you know, I don't know if it's too deep. I probably should have texted it to
Go
you
for it.
before. Well, I'm always like a big sufferer of imposter syndrome, like my whole career. You know, um, do you think that you have ever experienced that to a great deal? And like on top of that, was there a point that it went away or a point that you kind of learned to master it? Or is it just kind of always something that's looming?
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely experienced it uh for an amount of time, like when I was doing my own jobs and still kind of assisting. I think I don't actually feel like I experience it that much anymore, which maybe is bad.
No, I
But
think it's incredible.
but
Well,
I
just
think
like
I
owning the fact that you're there for a reason, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
think I think I spent a lot of time I spent so much time assisting, and I
Mm.
think I spent a lot of time just like learning everything I possibly could and like trying to take everything in, and you can't take everything in all at once. That's why assisting for like 6 months, it doesn't seem like enough to me because you can only absorb so much, every day that you work. But I think I started at a different time at it when the industry was a different place, and now it's completely different. And I think because I started in that time, there's a lot of things that I learned that are irrelevant, but I think um I think I feel pretty prepared for most situations.
Yeah.
There's obviously things that I'm not the best at, and there's somebody that's better for that job, and that's fine. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Or
Mhm.
or vice versa. Um, but yeah, I actually rarely feel imposter syndrome anymore, which sounds crazy. I
No,
remember a
that's
friend
so
talking about,
cool.
yeah, I mean, I remember a friend talking about it and being like, yeah, I remember that feeling and it feels good to not have it.
Hmm.
I mean,
Very.
sometimes you're on a job and you're like, oh, ooh, like, what am I doing here? And then you're like, you know what, I am prepared for this. Like a lot of the situations that I've been in, everywhere, I feel pretty comfortable,
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. And I mean, you can always ask. I don't know, like there's a lot of situations you can like there's questions you can ask or whatever, but I mean, I'm also not working doing like Vogue covers, you know.
Mhm.
So I think it's a different like there's the level that I work on that is comfortable, and there's another level that I don't work on that maybe I would feel a bit more scared, if that
Is
makes
that a
sense.
goal though? Do you want to get to that point? Do you want to do a Vogue cover? I mean, I'm assuming, yeah, you would,
Everyone
but
wants to do a Vogue
yeah,
cover.
but is it something that like you think about? Like you're like, I gotta get there, or is it just like, yeah, when it happens, it happens, and it will.
I've done teen Vogue covers. Does that
Yeah,
count?
honestly, if I just assumed you probably had done covers like
Yeah, yeah, I've
a
done
Vogue
covers. Yeah.
cover or two. Yeah,
Maybe not like I've never done like an American Vogue cover, but
right.
yeah, I mean, I have done a Vogue. Yeah, I've done some Vogue
I've
covers,
done a
but
Vogue.
not like not American Vogue or French Vogue or any of those. And like that those level of people. But to be honest, I'm sure it would be scary, but sometimes, like I think something about a certain level of experience and assisting, for an amount of time, it doesn't feel as those things don't feel as scary to me.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Scary, crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, it's so good. You know what I've always felt like that you were just such a comfortable person. Like you always seem so just like comfortable with who you are and comfortable in your own skin. And I think like even imagining assisting you, I think would just be a really nice experience because you're just such a nice human. Yeah. And maybe you're not. Maybe I want to interview the people who assist you. I want to hear the dark side of Clara.
I mean, I'm very specific. Like
Yeah.
I like am very specific about how I work and how I like my things set up.
Yeah.
It's just really nice to have a space that sometimes I realize like I can't work as efficiently or as well when I'm not like set up efficiently, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like for an assistant, like it's it's better for you to be specific, like then they can learn something. People who I've assisted in the past that were like just too easygoing, you didn't really come away with anything. It was an easy day and it was low key, but it wasn't really like a learning experience. So I think that there's a balance, there
Yeah.
that you can
I mean,
somebody can, what's that?
I was gonna say, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes I'll like be on a shoot and I'm like, doesn't matter what their hair looks like, have fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I love to actually take the opportunity when I know like it can be taken and let my assistants do whatever they want. And then,
yeah.
sometimes you can fix it or what, or change it or whatever. But like, I love whenever you can just be like, just do it this way. Good luck.
Oh,
Whatever
that's
you
great. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
I don't
sure
do
they
that very
love it
often,
too.
but you know.
That's awesome. Well, very cool. Well, I think like we can stop it there and have a part two sometime
Oh,
soon.
I would love a part two.
Let's do a part two. Yeah, this is fun. I've been meaning to start this again for a long time, and just it's hard. Time slips away, but it's easy enough to set up. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to do more. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get you back on soon.
Love it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Thank
fun.
you for taking the time.
Thank you for
And
having me. This was such an honor.
oh, whatever.
Huge
Yeah,
fan of
absolutely.
Lost Hairdressers. Huge fan.
Thanks. Anytime we've been through some things, let me tell you, we were a salon, and then we weren't, and now we're in a lawsuit. It's been crazy.
You guys in a lawsuit?
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that sometime. We'll talk about it offline. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but yeah, we had a salon in Texas too, actually, for a minute. I don't know if we ever talked about that, but
Yeah, I remember you had the salons. Yeah.
yeah, it was gonna be cool, but then it wasn't. So
Oh shit.
yeah, you got to be careful who you partner up with sometimes, but it's all good. We'll survive. I never wanted a salon in the first place, honestly, so it's okay. I like this stuff. So
I
um
know. I was thinking about how like you think you want to move forward with you like what you're doing and you want to keep going, right?
mhm.
And then you don't realize that it's actually so much more work that you don't actually want to do, like owning a salon. Like that's a certain type of person that wants to own a salon. And I've never wanted to own a salon, you know?
Yeah, same.
Same with doing
Yeah.
said stuff. Like everyone kind of is like, oh, maybe those are like things that you think you want to do with your career, but then you actually are in the situation and you're like, yeah, this is awful.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like
how
I
much
care
more
about
did I
myself.
just put on my plate? Wait, say
Yeah.
that last part? What did you say?
You're like, I care about myself too much to like
Yeah,
be badly every day.
totally. Or I care about all these coworkers too much to like tell them what to do. Like I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But yeah, part two, and we'll catch up soon. And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for taking the time, and I'll see you soon. Oh,
Yeah.
we got an apartment swap sometime. We got to get on
Yes,
that too. Yeah.
definitely down.
Okay. All right. Sounds
All
good,
right.
Clara. Okay. I'll
Bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.